Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices is made possible in part by Allstate and the Searle Funds at the Chicago Community Trust, and by the support of these donors.
Good evening y bienvenidos to Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices. I'm Alex Hernandez of Univision Chicago Primera Hora. We cherish every weekday morning at 5 and 6. Thank you for sharing part of your weekend with us. On the show tonight, for the third year, kids are headed back to school in the shadow of a COVID pandemic. We get advice on how to keep your kids from bringing home more than math homework this fall. Also, the city of Chicago has played a big role in labor organizing efforts, and with more workplaces looking to organize, we take a deeper dive into the world of unions. A landmark Pilsen music venue is putting on a block party to close out the summer.
They're all incredible musicians. Like, the band is just great.
And we introduce you to Chicago band Así Así. Classes are back in session this week at Chicago public schools, as well as in many suburban districts. And as the COVID pandemic continues to evolve this year, comes with new COVID protocols. Earlier this month, CPS announced its modified COVID plan, which includes no vaccination requirement for students or faculty, although they are, quote, strongly encouraged. No regular masking requirement for students or faculty. Special protocols for unvaccinated people who are close contacts of a confirmed COVID case. 3 or more cases of COVID in an elementary school classroom will trigger masking requirements. Vaccinated students and faculty who are exposed will be required to mask for 10 days. And weekly testing will still be offered, but requires new consent forms. 2022 also came with a new health worry. You know what I'm talking about, monkeypox, which is primarily spread by skin-to-skin contact and bodily fluids. Here to talk about how to reduce your child's risk of illness this school year are Dr. Juanita Mora, an allergist and immunologist at the Chicago Allergy Center, and Dr. Geraldine Luna, medical director at the Chicago Department of Public Health. I want to welcome both of you for joining us today. And I want to start with you, Dr. Luna. As we're moving closer to pre-pandemic normal practices, how worried should parents really be about COVID as school begins?
Well, Alex, that's a very important question. And just for people to know, and for folks out there and parents, science, it's pretty much supporting all the changes that CDC is doing, pretty much based on all that robust information, is that these requirements, new changes, are to adapt better so the children are safe, first of all, right? In their grounds, in their classrooms with classmates. And most importantly, that they're able to achieve the capacity of schools and districts to support these implementations are there in place. So, Alex, as long as you vaccinate your child, whichever guidance before and now more realistic and more true than ever, our new guidance at school are very safe to keep your children as long as parents follow. Remember, it's a multi-layer preventative mitigation strategies. And as always, the reports of cases at school has always been lower, and we expect them to continue to be the lowest as we vaccinate children and send them and protected to school.
Right, and speaking of vaccination, Dr. Mora, parents of unvaccinated school-age kids might be wondering if it's even necessary to vaccinate them at this point. What would you say to them?
Well, I would say, Alex, that CDC is definitely relaxing a lot of the restrictions. They're relaxing the 6 feet physical distancing, the mask wearing, and they're also going to, obviously, a kid who tests positive in a class, the rest of the classroom can now stay, and the kids don't need to stay. And then the third change that they're doing is that if a kid's unvaccinated and exposed to someone positive, they can stay in the classroom as long as they wear a mask and they test at day 5. I'm telling parents, we've now given millions of vaccines to children, and it is safe and efficacious. As we're bringing down our guard, as we're getting back to normal, let's protect our kids and give them the vaccine. So that way they'll have a wonderful school year. It not only protects them, but also protects their grandparents, their community, our country, because kids are often vectors of transmission. and it'll keep their schools open, Alex.
Right. We have also seen an outbreak of monkeypox in Chicago. Dr. Luna, should parents be concerned about transmission to children, especially in schools?
Well, we're prepping for that, and schools are already having implemented their protocols to keep children safe, to contain, to isolate if any cases identified, to start contact tracing, and to vaccinate individuals that are potentially exposed or were exposed. However, Alex, the most important thing is that we haven't seen children cases with monkeypox here in Chicago. And that is something very promising. And the vaccines are now being rolled out. So we hope to see the benefits. In Europe, we're starting to see downsloping. So we're crested. Now we're seeing downsloping of those cases. And every time, whatever we see in Europe, it's later on reflected here in the United States. So we hope that the chances of seeing a child in Chicago with MPV are less than zero as the weeks continue to roll out with the vaccine. So, Alex, it's safe. Classes already have those protocols in place, just for parents to know.
And let's just hope we just stay at zero, definitely. Dr. Mora, masking every day is, as we know, no longer required in CPS schools. Would you recommend that parents have their children still mask anyway?
Well, I think every family is going to have to make that decision, Alex. But for example, if someone is very immunocompromised at the home, then they might consider masking the child, especially, for example, a grandparent who's undergoing chemotherapy or radiation for cancer, or a brother or sister, or a newborn child in the home as well, too, might be an indication. And honestly, we are all supportive of what the family decides as well, too. And, speaking to superintendents in schools, they have a no bullying rule as well, too, for kids who decide to mask. So it's going to be on an individual basis, but, obviously there's going to be a case-to-case decision on it.
Definitely. And there's also another worry. We're also heading into flu season. Dr. Luna, what do we know about the flu this year, and what are your recommendations regarding the flu shot?
Alex, it's very important that we get our children with their schedule and routine vaccination before going to school. That's the important, and that's why so much effort is being placed by the city in an equity lens to have children connect to medical homes to get those protocols, all those vaccines co-protected. Is not only COVID. We know their children need more protections out there. So flu season it's coming up now very quickly. It's right around the corner in September, and is very detrimental in children and the elderly. So it attacks those two extremes in ages. So the important thing is get your child vaccinated, consult with your doctor if you think there's any contraindication or any special circumstance that might keep your children from getting that essential life-saving vaccine. But Alex, COVID and flu and all the other ones are so important to send our children protected to their class.
Without a doubt. And going back with COVID, the COVID vaccine, as we know, this vaccine for children under 5 became available earlier this summer, but the rates are still very low for that group. What message, Dr. Mora, do you have for parents who are still vax reluctant?
So I tell them, please vaccinate your kids, especially, now they're heading back into the nurseries, into pre-K, etc. We've, again, given millions of vaccines in these age groups, and myself included. I've given them to, kids as young as 6 months, and they all have done well. And parents feel at ease because they're going to be protected. Let's not forget, we've lost 1,000 kids to this pandemic, not one more. Kids often, again, are vectors of transmission, so let's stop the propagation of COVID-19. 3, kids have gotten long-haul COVID symptoms, such as multi-inflammatory syndrome. So this is protecting them, protecting their families, protecting their country. So let's get these kids vaccinated.
We have just 1 minute, Dr. Luna, but we need to talk about the polio virus that may have had a resurgence in New York City. Is that something we should also be concerned about here?
So, Alex, pretty much we have seen that in people migrating from other places. Here we haven't seen, in Chicago, we haven't seen any of those cases. In 1957, we had a big epidemic happening here in 1956. So last case reported in Illinois was in 1970, and it was a person that came from another country where polio, unfortunately, is endemic in that population. So we are, as always, the Department of Health increases measures, makes sure we're checking our water systems, we're checking surveillance systems that we have in place that have gotten much, much better now that we have this vigilance and the surveillance systems in place.
Our time is up, unfortunately, Dr. Luna, but thank you so much also for your recommendation, Dr. Mora, as well. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, a pleasure. Thank you.
Up next, the history and future of the labor movement here in Chicago. Chicago union organizing has played a big role in everyday life, ranging from Labor Day to 8-hour workday. But it's not all history, with workers in a variety of fields trying to unionize and change labor laws in the state. Joining us now with more on the labor movement here in Chicago are Don Villar, Secretary-Treasurer for the Chicago Federation of Labor, and Lenny Sanchez, an organizer with the Rideshare and Delivery Driver Coalition Justice for Op Workers, as well as Jose Alcala, President of Painters Local 184, District Council 14. I want to welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. And we're seeing an increase in labor organizers, both nationally and locally. Don, how has Chicago traditionally been a home for organizers?
Alex, Chicago, we like to call ourselves the hometown of the American labor movement. From 1877 in the great railway strike, where workers in Chicago and Pilsen, they got up and they fought for their rights. And in 1886, when workers at the Haymarket and their fight for an 8-hour day and a weekend, and that started here in Chicago, and around the world they celebrate Haymarket on May Day. It is celebrated here. And in 1896 in Pullman, where the railway workers strike there, and that led to why we celebrate Labor Day. Labor Day is because of what happened in Chicago, in Pullman, and the great strike of 1896. And then throughout history, Chicago and the workers in Chicago have played a major role in the workers' rights movement. And we continue to do that today. And you're seeing that with the Workers' Rights Amendment, which you sort of alluded to, where we're trying to enshrine, where we're going to enshrine the right to have a voice at the workplace, the right to have a union in Illinois' Constitution.
Yeah, there's definitely a big history of unions here in Illinois, especially in Chicago. And as we know, Illinois is surrounded also by right-to-work states, which make it very difficult for employees to unionize. Jose, how is Illinois different, and do you expect any legal changes when it comes to organized labor?
No, not as long as we have support of the governor here and great leaders like Bob Ryder, the president of the Chicago Fed, and Don Villar behind us. We won't have any changes. That's why we need to change and make that change to the Constitution with the Workers' Right Amendment that will give you bargaining rights when you go to do when you pay. Also help you with your safety. If you see anything, you can say something. They can't mess with you. If we don't get that changed, then it might become a right-to-work state, and we don't want that.
Definitely.
A little bit on the history of Chicago, just so you know. Chicago has been built by Latinos from 1967 to the present. From the John Hancock to the Sears to the Standard Oil, the 1 Mag Mile, the drywallers and the drywall finishers were Mexican American and Latinos. Just so you guys know a little history. We built the city from the ground up.
Very interesting, definitely. And Lenny, you work with independent contractors. What are the challenges organizing workers who aren't unionized? We can't hear you, Lenny, so I don't know if we can probably fix your...
There you go.
Oh, there you are. Now we hear you.
Myself there. Yeah. So when we're independent contractors, it's a major hurdle in unionizing. And with the workers that we're focusing on being Uber, DoorDash, Grubhub, Lyft, etc., this is not your traditional workforce that's all found under one roof, whether it's a warehouse, a factory, a farm, whatever it is. we're spread out all over the place, and it has an insane turnover rate of about 4%. It's a retention rate of 4% yearly in this industry. So the defining body, contacting everybody, there's a lot of challenges with organizing everybody, but we're doing our absolute best, and this coalition is a big step towards doing that.
Right. Jose, you work with painters. How is unionizing with people who work in the trades different than like the efforts at places like Starbucks and Amazon?
Well, see, and that Starbucks and Uber and all the gig workers, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get what we have. When you join a union, and the painters union, after 300 hours, you get full insurance, vision, dental, and medical after 300 hours. And after 3 years, you make close to $90,000 a year. That's a difference. Now, with the gig workers, they're trying to come in, they're trying to get insurance, they're trying to get coverage, and that's what they're trying to do. That's the difference between a labor union and a gig union, and hopefully the gig workers and the share ride workers can all do that. The Starbucks people can come in the fold and join in and get medical insurance, get pension, and get welfare. You know,
Lenny,
that's the main thing.
Thank you. Lenny, what kind of response have you gotten from like large rideshare companies like Lyft or Uber? Have you had any success?
Very little. They really are just robotic, cold-blooded companies that don't care. And I can tell you that from experience. I've had a passenger pull out a gun on me, and their solution was to never pair me with that passenger ever again. And from all the experiences and speaking with so many drivers that have been victims of attacks, carjackings, and the family members that have survived, the ones that have been murdered, unfortunately. These companies are as robotic and cold-blooded as it gets. The only way we're going to get anywhere is where we're all unified, fighting together for what we deserve.
Definitely. Now going back with you, Don, in the past there have been efforts to divide workers along racial lines to prevent unionizing. What kind of tactics do you see now when companies fight unionization efforts?
Today, Alex, I mean, one of the things that we were seeing, especially for a lot of our Latinx and our people of color, there was a report that came out back in April that Latino workers have a higher rate of death or injury on the job because of their immigrant status or because of their minority status than everybody else. So I mean that puts workers' safety is at risk, especially when they pit us against each other because of our immigration status or because of people of color. That's been the history where workers have been pit against each other, and we continue to see that today. And just what Lenny was mentioning was oftentimes workers who are the gig workers, they tend to be workers who are marginalized, and because of that status. They become victimized, and that's one of the challenges that the labor movement is. We're always fighting. We're fighting for people's rights. We're fighting for people's workplace safety, and then to give them a voice and to fight against that discrimination, that marginalization of workers. I mean, there's value in all work and value in all workers.
Union membership has declined significantly in recent decades. Do you think that trend will reverse? And I'll go back with you, Lenny, just for this last question. We have less than 15 seconds.
100%. From what I've seen in swings, from talking to drivers for years now, the support for unionization is very strong and is very popular and is very common. And I'm very confident we'll accomplish that.
Guys, I want to thank you for your time today. Thank you, Lenny Sanchez, Jose Alcalá, and Don Villar.
Welcome, Alex.
Thank you.
Up next, a brand new block party comes to Pilsen. Stay with us. A new event is coming to Pilsen next week. The Talia Hall Block Party, which will bring live music and food vendors to Alport Street directly in front of the historic music hall. Its organizers say they are hoping it will become an annual tradition.
It's going to take place right outside on Alport, just in front of our main facade. And it's going to be a combination of a lot of different local touring acts, and DJs throughout the day. That includes a lot of local vendors as well and a few different food options. You know, we love food, we love music. We wanted to take all of our favorite things, put them all together, put it on the street, make it free for everybody, and have a good old time to close out the summer. We are kicking the day off with a performance of like traditional Mexican dance and song. We have Luna Day, who is a local singer-songwriter and producer who's going to bring a little bit more R&B vibes. We have Rudy de Anda, who's a bilingual indie rock artist who lives in Pilsen, so that's pretty fun. We have E. Woods, who's going to be bringing us some more kind of funk and soul vibes. And then we have touring artists, the Sacred Souls, who are our live headliners, who are very much this kind of throwback soul vibe. But we're closing out the whole night with the Agua de Rosas DJ Collective. They do a lot of reggaeton dance parties, so we figure might as well take our last stand of the evening dancing our booties off. We very much want it to feel like a block party, but with some extra bells and whistles, right? It's not a huge footprint, but it is right on our block. It's very much something that we hope that a lot of our neighbors are able to join us for, and we really want to make sure that it feels like something that is particularly Chicago and particularly Pilsen.
If you're interested in going, the Talia Hall Block Party will take place on Saturday, August 27th from 2 to 10 p.m. Admission is actually free, but a suggested donation of $5 will benefit the Pilsen Food Pantry. You'll find more details on our website. The songwriter and frontman of Chicago band Así Así writes and sings in Spanish, but the only language Fernando de Bueno's bandmates share with him is the language of music. De Buen, who moved to Chicago from Mexico City a decade ago, says that seeming disconnect adds texture to their music, which layers psychedelic, electronic, and surf sounds to create a moody blend of indie rock.
I heard this somewhere and it resonated with me. 99% of writing music is like failing until the 1% where you don't. When I was writing some music, I tried this exercise of like sitting in a room for like 12 hours straight and writing as many songs as you can, like 12 songs or whatever. And most of it was absolute trash. But the seed for this one song came out. The song is called Descubrimientos, which means like discoveries. I don't have a specific like story or idea behind it. It's more like a feeling of it, of like these moments where you're like, you speak too soon, kind of a thing. So the lyrics kind of reflect that idea. We worked remotely a lot on this particular song. We would sit down on Zoom, sharing audio of the computer, and just like record the demo and build it up and do different arrangements. But then when we came here to a studio to record it, it went from being like this thing recorded in segments over Zoom in bedrooms to like the full band, and now it has a much more lush sound because of that. I'm originally from Mexico City, but I've moved to Chicago 10 years ago. I learned to write songs in Spanish. I've tried to write in English and I just can't. It's terrible, like really bad. But then also, you know, when we were writing this record and when Así Así started playing, you know, it's past administration. Not that so many things have changed, but like there was a very active like voice against diversity. And I think we also took a stance of like, no, actually, it's okay to sing in Spanish. There's a lot of people that speak Spanish in the world and in this country, and let's just sing in Spanish, because why not?
Sounds good. Así Así's debut album, Mal de Otros, was released actually this week. Well, that's going to be our show for this weekend. Be sure to check out our website, WTTW.com/news, for the very latest from WTTW News. And don't forget also to tune in to Primera Hora on Univision Chicago every weekday morning. I'll be waiting for you. We leave you now with more music from Así Así. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight Latino Voices, I'm Alex Hernandez. Thank you for sharing part of your weekend with us. Buenas noches.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm, and proud sponsor of programming that offers advice and strategies to enhance the physical and mental well-being of fellow legal practitioners in Illinois.